Kristen.
And I'm Bethany.
And this is Looking for the Middle,
A Christian Girl's Guide to Modern Dating.
We are just two single girls trying to figure out how to date well as Christian women.
I think we're figuring it out.
I think so.
Now, if we could just find people to date, we could try out our knowledge.
Half the battle.
Right?
Half the battle's already won. The most important half is still missing. So, we're working on it, promise. Bethany's still online and...
Oh, yeah. So, we'll get to the question of the day in a minute, but don't worry, I haven't met that sounded really more excited than it should. I'm not like dating someone, no big announcement, whatever. Anyway, what I was going to say, and you might not even remember this, but in the first online dating episode we did,
yes,
several weeks ago now, you asked me, would you rather be talking to like several people, always talking to someone, but they always ended up as dead ends, or would you rather just be talking to no one? And I kind of was like,
remember this
they
question.
both have struggles, they both have, but I didn't really
very
have
diplomatic.
a good answer. I just didn't know. I know now.
Oh, gosh.
So can we revisit and I answer that
yes,
question?
we can. What's your answer, Bethany?
It's way worse having no one to talk to.
Oh, that makes me sad.
Don't be sad. It's okay. But I just went through one of those dry spells we talked about. Had about 2 weeks of talking to literally no one. It's rough.
Gosh.
So
I'm so sorry.
it's fine. I've remedied the situation. All is well now.
You're not in the drought anymore.
No.
Great.
But there's an answer to the question.
Okay.
For sure.
I'm so glad you circled back.
I have decided. Okay. So, for our question of the day, are you ready?
I am never ready, but go ahead.
I think this is a fun one.
Okay.
Okay. If they were going to make a movie about your life, who would play you and why?
Gosh. You already know the
I know
answer.
mine.
Who would you want to play you?
No, you go first.
Oh, no, I don't know the answer to mine, so will you go first?
Oh, I thought you meant I already knew the answer to yours.
Oh, no.
Which I did not.
Oh,
because
sorry.
you don't.
No, I don't.
Anyway, who would play me?
Yeah, who would play you?
Rachel Bilson.
Oh, that's
I watched
such a good
Heart
one.
of Dixie, and I've seen her in something else, and I absolutely love her.
Oh my gosh.
And so I was like, I want her to play me in a movie.
Maybe I'll go back and rewatch Heart of Dixie. That was a fun show
I
to
liked
watch.
that show. It was funny.
Oh, she's
Pretty
great.
lighthearted, but yeah. I was like, I can see her and me. Like, I see
Yes.
that being a good thing. Anyway,
Yes. Oh, that's
That's
a
who I
great
would pick.
answer. I'm trying to think of like my favorite.
Blake Lively. You like her.
I
That's
do
what was
like
going
Blake
with.
Lively. Maybe Reese Witherspoon.
That would be so perfect.
She's blonde. She's spunky. She can kill a
Sweet
southern
Home
accent.
Alabama.
Yes.
Blake Lively.
Blake
I'm still
Lively.
on Blake Lively. Reese Witherspoon.
Yes. No, I would not oppose if Blake Lively wanted to play me in a movie. Trust me, she's perfect, or as close to perfect as you can possibly
No one
be.
is perfect, Kristen.
Well, she's pretty darn close. But yeah, Reese Witherspoon
Y'all
would
could
probably.
hear me rolling my eyes.
I know. Reese Witherspoon
Yeah,
would probably
I like
be
that
my
one.
answer.
That's
I've
a
watched
good
a lot
one.
of her movies recently. She's fun.
That's a good one.
Great question.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm so slow at answering all
That's
of your
okay.
questions. Y'all don't know the minutes that Bethany has to cut out of these episodes of me just sitting
Kinda
here
funny.
staring blankly.
It's like, do.
Yes, cue the Jeopardy music. We need like a soundboard when we really make it of like
Oh, yeah.
little fun sound effects.
If y'all want to send us money so we can get a soundboard, then we can put sound effects in our episodes.
We won't oppose. Oh gosh.
Okay, that's taking a turn. Let's reel it
Yes. Yes, let's.
in. Unfortunately, today what we're talking about is pros and cons, differences, whatever, of dating older versus younger. And I think any argument we had for either of us being on the mature, older side of that just went out the window.
Agreed.
With that little last
Totally.
90 seconds.
Totally agreed.
But
Yes.
anyway, we're going to take a stab at it.
Yes.
Anyway.
And just to clarify, because I'm blonde, and I'm not assuming any of you are stooping to my level of blondness when you heard us say that or read the title of this episode. When we say dating older versus dating younger, we're not talking about dating older guys versus dating younger guys. Because at first
No,
I
I'm
read
glad
this,
you
I was
said
like, ooh, it's dating as a like young 20s.
Early 20s, yeah.
Versus dating like in your 30s.
And it just so happens we have one of each of those here. So,
Exactly.
yeah. So anyway,
Personal
yeah,
experience.
it's not about, like, what's a good age gap between you and the
Yes.
person you're dating, which
That could be a good
that would
couchcast
be a good
episode.
couch cast. Write that down.
Yeah, we'll write that down.
Okay.
I'm ready.
So I think if we're talking about the differences, though, in what is the major difference of dating as a young person versus dating as someone who's in their 30s, here's what I kind of always think of. There's, when you're younger and you get together with someone or you get married, you're basically growing up together. And then when you're older, it's more of you're merging two independent adults' lives. That to me is like, in my head, is
a
like
good
the
way to sum it
major
up.
distinction. Would you think?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay, so we're going to talk about some of the pros and cons of each of those. I will be taking on the role of the older side of this equation, unfortunately.
Because I'm younger.
Kristen likes to remind everyone of that. Like, she better just wait till she turns 30.
Oh my gosh,
I will never let her hear the end of it.
I know. I'm the baby of the friend group, so I milk it for all it's worth.
You really are. I never really thought about that, but you are the youngest. Yeah.
Yes. And so I will be talking about the dating in the young 20s. However, I'm about to turn 26, so I'm slowly crawling out
Yours
of that
is more
age
of like
bracket.
looking back on those days and reflecting. Mine is more of like a real time, here's what I'm dealing with right now.
Yes. And just to get some experience with someone who dated and actually got married in their early 20s, I called my mom earlier today.
That's so smart. I'm glad you did.
Yes, her and my dad got married when they were 22. Was my mom even 22 yet, actually? No, she was 21 and my dad was 22.
My mom... Sorry.
No, you're good.
My mom got married... Well, Dad did too, but when Mom got married, they got married in August and she turned 20 in September.
Oh, wow. So
she was
super
19
young. Gosh.
when they got married.
People got married. My great-grandmother was 14 when she got married.
Like, that just, like... Can you... Okay, so you're 25, I'm 32. Can you imagine for you being married 11 years already?
No.
And I'd be like, I'm coming up on 20.
No. But seriously, I am going to talk because, yes, I'm not, thankfully... I'm starting to feel further and further away from my early 20s, which is just a me issue. But like I said, I did talk to my mom and she gave me some really good insight. Good. So we're going to be talking through that too. So, Bethany, why don't you kick us off?
Okay.
Age before beauty, after all.
Oh, you've just been waiting to pull that out, haven't you?
It really honestly just popped into my head.
I don't even believe you.
I am being dead serious.
Okay, so let's talk. I'll talk about the dating older part, but before we do, let's set a foundation.
Okay.
It's
always a good idea.
What is normal, quote unquote, out there? What some averages are. So, we did some research.
Bethany's favorite thing to do.
Yes, and according to the Population Reference Bureau,
which is smart people language for people who count people.
They found that the national average for women to get married is 27.6 years old.
Okay.
Men, it's 29 and a half.
Okay.
But, and this is interesting, in 1968, so 50 years ago, 51, whatever, those numbers were 21 and 23, respectively. So in
21 for a girl
years,
and 23 for a guy. Okay.
It went up 6 years for each. Now, I have a thought on why that is. Why do you think that is? I
honestly have no idea.
Okay.
I want to, or I don't know if this would be a thing, but I feel like with the whole, and I wouldn't consider myself a feminist, but with the feminist movement of women are independent and they can take care of themselves and do things on their own. And whereas I think the view of women and the role of women was viewed differently in media and in culture when, our grandparents were getting married or 100%. Even when our parents were growing up, it was
more of the traditional gender roles.
Beaver Cleaver's mom.
Oh, I loved June Cleaver.
I loved June Cleaver.
I think that's a big, I
maybe
think that's
it's
key.
Women of like, I can wait a while. I don't need to, marry somebody right after college. I can, kind of do my own thing.
Make my own way.
Yeah, so that was the first thing that kind of popped into my mind.
I think that's a huge part of it. One thing, and this was just kind of something that I wondered about, and so I, again, did some more research, and it was confirmed. My thought was, when did divorce rates increase drastically? And here's why. Because if you grew up, a vast number of people grew up seeing their parents get divorced, that's going to make you gun shy about dating and getting married and what that looks like, because you don't want to go through what you experienced as a child for yourself. So I looked it up. In 1950, 20% of couples who married ended up divorced. By 1970...
So young, or so little.
Yeah, by 1970, though, 20 years, that number was up to 50%.
That's crazy.
So we look back at our 1968 number of 21 and 23. It kind of coincides then with that divorce rate skyrocketing. What I was looking at was saying that in the kids born in the 70s saw their parent get divorced about half the time. About half of kids born in the 70s, their parents divorced, compared to 11% in the 50s. It went up dramatically. And so I think what we're seeing is that age of people getting married is getting later and later because they feel like, I've got to know this is the right person. I've got to figure this out. I have to be so sure so that doesn't happen to me. When in reality, you can't know that. So I think that's a big contributing factor too.
I had never thought about that. But I mean, I even think about my parents, both my grandparents got divorced. My mom's parents remarried each other. So they're back together. But they both got divorced. And that was a really pivot. I mean, my parents got married young, but they were, especially my mom, very adamant about having a good marriage because they didn't want to get divorced like their parents did. So
they saw the impact that had on them,
and even how it's impacted our family at this point. And,
it has
years
lasting.
and years and years later. So that's a great point. I never thought about it that way.
So that's just kind of setting some, I was gonna say, helpful, foundation
to think through.
I don't know that it's really helpful, but it was interesting, and I think we see as now, like, people are getting married so much later, and so they're dating a lot older, and so it's kind of a little bit new territory. It hasn't ever been a thing where people in their 30s dated as much as they do now.
No, well, and I'm even thinking of whenever we did our panel discussion at your church a couple months ago, there were a couple married couples there, one of which they started dating in early high school, and they're married, and so they were kind of talking about their dating experience, and Bethany and I were talking about it afterwards of like, oh, that's totally different.
Yeah.
And you don't think about it because here that this is their idea and concept of dating when it was, 14 to 19.
And in the 80s.
In the 80s, yes. And here we are in 2019 in our 20s and 30s, and it's just so different. And like you said, it's new territory, and we're kind of, our generation is sort of pioneering what this looks like.
So I don't know is entirely a good thing.
But
anyway,
we'll find out, right?
Are good things. So let's talk first about some of the pros of being in your 30s and dating.
Yes. Starting with the positive.
Or being single in your 30s, or however you want to look at it. You can do all those things that people tell you to do before you get married. You can travel, you can be spontaneous, basically whatever you want to. And when in dating, you can go meet people, and like you have the freedom to do that because it's just you. Obviously, if you were married, you wouldn't be dating. I'm just saying that's a pro is that you can do all of those things. You can figure out You can figure out how to be an adult on your own without taking that on someone else.
Yeah.
Career stuff, finances. Even if you mess up, it only affects you at that point.
Yeah.
Some of those things that you would drag someone else into if you were married, you can figure out on your own. So I think that's a pro, is you come into it with a little bit more maturity. You can bring that level of maturity into relationships because you're more self-aware, you're more experienced. A lot of the social anxiety and awkwardness is gone. I mean, I know for me, and I'm trying to convince Kristen, I love my 30s.
She really is trying to convince me.
I'm early on in them still, but I'm more confident. I know who I am. I'm okay with people not liking me. Well, sometimes I say that. I'm more okay with people not liking me or not. I'm less prone to change who I am so that someone will like me. I'm more confident in who I am that I'm not willing to change that for someone else. Like preference stuff. If it's a character issue, tell me about it. Like that's different. So I think those are some good things.
Yeah. Well, even think about, if you're listening to this, even if you're in your early mid-20s, think about how dating has changed since you were in high school.
Yeah.
And how you were insecure and you were, trying to still figure out who you are and what you wanted to be and how far you've come since then. And then you have another gap like that from your 20s into your 30s. I think this is a huge perk of being able to develop that level of maturity and just grow really into who you are without being even influenced by anybody else. Because as you're dating, I feel like the more mature and the more self-aware and the more growth there is in your life, the more enjoyable dating is going to be. Because it's not like, oh, I'm trying to see if it will work with this other person while I'm trying to figure out who I am. It's like, you know what? No, I'm confident. Like you said, I'm confident in who I am. I don't overvalue other people's opinions of me to the point where I'm changing for them. I am comfortable in my skin, and so I'm going to confidently pursue this dating relationship with somebody.
Yeah, and I think once you do find someone when you're older that you click with, it doesn't take as long to determine is this going to work or not.
That's true.
Because you are more self-aware. You are more in tune with your shortcomings, with your strengths, with things you need to work on, just all of that. It doesn't take as long to decide, are we going to be able to work together? Which does kind of tie in, going over to the cons though, especially as women. I feel like the older you get, your time frame is so compressed. So it's good that you're more self-aware and you know these things, because as you get older, there's like this looming thing of, oh, you gotta hurry up and have kids, like hanging over your head, whether it be your own biological clock ticking or people constantly like asking you or pressuring you.
Are you gonna freeze your eggs? You know.
Yes! Because there's like this unspoken and sometimes spoken pressure to hurry up and figure out, is this the guy? Because you don't have all the time in the world. And it can be overwhelming, but then at the same time also paralyzing. Because you're like, well, am I wasting time trying to figure this out? Should I just forget it and break up and be done because I gotta find the right guy? Or do I want to spend the time it takes? It's all over the place.
Yeah.
Round and round in your head you go.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a con, is this pressure and rush, because now that you are older. And it's like it's like, I know how old I am. I haven't forgotten how to count.
I don't need you to tell me.
So it's like,
I'm
seriously?
well aware.
Yeah, so that's a con for sure. Another one that's a big one for me, and this is like the one thing, and it sounds so dumb, that I look forward to the most, is like when you're older and you're on your own and you're dating, you're single, whatever, you're solely responsible for everything. Paying bills, getting the car fixed, every decision that has to be made, you have to make it. I just want someone to go grocery shopping with me. Like, you know what I mean?
I want somebody to take my car to get the oil changed.
Little things. Like, those are things that when you're in high school or you're young, you're probably still living at home. And your parents take care of that stuff. But when you're older and you have to do it all by yourself, it's frustrating.
Yeah, sometimes you just like someone to tag team with.
Exactly.
On stuff like
yeah,
that.
and I mean, just like we were talking about too, though, that you're more independent. That's a pro. You're also more set in your independence, which then when you do, meet someone and find someone that you want to like really invest time in, you have your way of doing things and you really want them to just do them that way too. And so you've got to be aware of that. That's something that I had someone point out to me, like, hey, just keep this in mind, that now that you've been on your own, you do all of this stuff. When you meet someone, you need to be willing to give up some of that, and that they have ways of doing things too, and be okay with that. And I was like, oh, that's a really good point, because I am a pretty independent person. So that's something to just really watch out for, I think.
Yeah.
So I think those are more like, I know we're talking about pros and cons of like dating older versus younger. Those are kind of like pros and cons of being single older.
Yeah.
Is that the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay,
I
cool.
think because you're
Okay,
just in
good.
a season of,
Yeah.
hey, I'm dating and I'm not married
Okay.
while I'm trying to, maybe
Yeah.
it's more of that. It's whether you're single or dating, you're just not married.
Yeah,
yet.
that makes sense.
So you're figuring out how all this is going, because even if you're single and you're facing all this is going to impact your dating relationship.
True.
Once you
Yeah,
get
that
into
makes
that.
sense. Yeah,
Whether
yeah.
it's you're set in your independence or, all the decision making. Because even when you start dating somebody seriously, decisions you make about your career, about your finances are going to start to change, because you're going to think, okay, well, if I want to marry this person, maybe I'll start saving some money.
Right.
Or, maybe I won't take a job halfway across the country because I want to be with this person. So these definitely can impact your life, whether you're dating or single.
Yeah.
So you can kind of look at it through that
I think that's a good way
viewpoint.
of putting it, yeah. Okay, so I'm old and exhausted now from all that talking, so if the young whippersnapper
not
over
me.
here could take over, that would be great.
Young whippersnapper. Oh, wow. I don't know if I want to take that as a compliment or an insult.
Okay, so start with the pros.
Yes. So, I formatted mine differently.
Oh, whatever, just start with number one.
Okay, so the first thing that we'll talk through about dating younger is figuring out how to be an adult with somebody else. So whereas, if you're into your 30s, you've had plenty of time to figure out how to be an adult on your own and have that independence. So whereas when you wait longer to date, or you get married in your 30s or whatever it is, you've had that time to find your independence and figure out how to live on your own, which, like you said, can be difficult when you start merging. So if you do start dating younger, if you get married younger, that independence doesn't necessarily clash because you never really had it.
You figure out what that looks like for
Yeah.
you as a couple, as
Yeah.
opposed to trying to make it out of two different independent lives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I asked my mom about this because I was like, was that easier for y'all? Because she's like, well, yeah, I guess so, because my dad lived with his parents all the way up until he got married.
Oh, so he went straight from one
House to the other. And then my mom went and lived away at college. It was a very strict Christian school, so I wouldn't
Okay.
call it, the typical college life.
Right.
They had to chaperone your dates. Even.
Oh,
like, it was
wow.
that strict. Yeah. which she broke the rules. It's fine. She hid a TV in a locked dresser in her room to watch Days of Our Lives.
Oh my word.
And would hide under her bed to skip chapel. My mother, y'all.
Oh,
I'm not the rebel.
I tell
my
you
other
what.
siblings got that gene, but she's a mess. But so they didn't have that time to develop all of these habits and ways of doing things, and so they got to kind of figure that out together, which is definitely, I think, can be a pro. But also, and they tell me this a lot now, they didn't have that time to be independent, do things on their own. My dad never got to experience what it was like to live on his own. And
that's so funny, because I can't comprehend that.
Yeah.
I lived on my own for years.
Exactly.
And so that would be totally different.
Yeah, and you think about, I am going on I'll be out of my parents' house for 2 years this summer, and I went away to college for a little bit. But I love this season, and I love that I have figured out how to support myself and be on my own, and that I can just go do fun things whenever I want, and my parents tell me all the time, like, Kristen, enjoy this, that you're getting this season, because we didn't get this, and you're getting to do so many things and go so many places and make so many decisions that we couldn't make or couldn't do. So that can be a con if, you do end up making that decision earlier. Another thing, as far as, which I did not think about this at all, but I thought it was really cool that my mom brought this up in regards to spending time together. And this is really thinking long term, so hang on with me through this. But especially, so if you date early, you get married early, you have kids early, once your kids are grown, you've got a lot of time to spend together before you're like really old or you're having to take care of your parents.
I never thought about that
either, but
I'm doomed.
But then she's like, but you don't, well, I'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, I'd never really thought about that before, because she even used my grandparents as an example, because they got married at 19 and 23 or 18 and 22, whatever it was, and had 2 kids right away, and by the time they were 40, their kids were gone, and they were empty nesters. So they've had all this, they're in their 70s now, and they've had all this time to go travel and do fun things and be retired, and that they would, so they're getting time on the back end.
Yeah,
basically.
and it's fun to, like I was saying, that's a pro of being single longer, is you get to do all the stuff that people say, oh, do it before you get married, but then at the same time, if you're married younger, then you can do a lot of those things with someone too.
Yeah.
So I think that there's pros in the same thing on both sides.
Exactly. And that's what my mom said.
Cool.
Yeah, it's like she's like, a con is like you don't get to do as many of those things when you're younger, so you do have to wait a while. But you do eventually get to do them. Yeah. You have that time, which I thought was a cool perspective. Yeah. I hadn't thought about that. And that's, like I said, very futuristic thinking, but I think it's definitely something to consider. And then the other thing she talked about was, which I would agree with this too, and this was something that I even thought through. I dated a guy somewhat seriously my freshman year of college, and the marriage conversation had happened. I was a freshman, and he was a senior. Oh, wow. So he was about to be out. I'm like, I had 3 more years.
So he was seriously thinking about it at that point,
And so, and my mom and dad, my mom had 2 years of school left when they got married. And she's like, we were not established at all. Yeah. Neither of us had ever, we weren't living out on our own. Financially, we were broke. My dad says we didn't have 2 dimes to rub together, And so my mom will say all the time that the pro was life was so simple, because we were just poor, but we were in love. It's like, we would go on Friday nights after work, and we would get Taco Bell or Del Taco, and we'd go home and get in the bed at 6 p.m. and watch movies and eat Taco Bell in the bed. She's like, and it was the funnest thing ever. She's like, but it was just so simple, and it was so great. And so it wasn't always a bad thing that we didn't, have everything right away. Yeah. She's like, we have more now than we do then. But she's like, but I wouldn't trade those times for anything. Yeah. And they were great. She's like, now that to say, it was really hard. She's like, we had a very tight budget, and I was in school for 2 more years and couldn't work. So your dad was having to, she's like, I was student teaching and all that stuff. And I remember thinking the exact same thing whenever I was, because even my life plan, if y'all have heard me talk about this, was I wasn't supposed to meet the guy till like sophomore year, and we'd get engaged junior year and then get married right out of school. Like, I wanted to at least have that. Yeah. Because there is this idea of like, oh, we need to be somewhat established. But it's really hard when you're younger. To navigate that. So I definitely think it can be a con. It can also be a pro, though. It doesn't have to be miserable.
Sure.
But it's something to think about. Yeah. And it's something I think that now I'm really grateful that, and I'm not saying I'm nowhere close to getting married. Let's be real, unless something really drastic happens in the next, 2 weeks. But, I have moved on my own, and I have a savings account, and I have, I don't have any student debt, and I've, at a place where I'm like, I feel like I would be set up well to move into a marriage financially, and I wouldn't have gotten that if I had gotten married 4 or 5 years ago, like my original life plan said. So it's a lot of things to consider. The last thing my mom said, and there's no con to this, she said one of the pros of, dating and getting married young is you didn't have to wait. And I'm like, all right, Mom, thanks for... She's like, but seriously, though, she's like, so many people now, like, you're waiting because you're not married yet, and you're thinking about it a lot, and you're always... And she's like, just wasn't a thing. I'm like, thanks, Mom.
Yeah.
I'm like, glad that was a pro for you, because this is such a... That's a con for me.
Not so much.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
But when I asked her, too, I was like, did anybody ever grill you about when are you going to get married? She's like, no, never. And I'm like, oh, how nice. Because I feel like that's just a very, especially, we talked about this in our very first episode of especially being in the church.
Yes.
There's just this constant pressure, particularly from middle-aged married women, that's like, when are you going to get married? And be like, if I knew, I would tell you.
Yeah, just so you'd stop asking. Well, and that's what I don't understand, too. It's like, one, if you're dating someone, they're asking about that specific person.
Yes.
But if you're not, it suddenly becomes like everyone's personal mission to get you together with someone.
Oh, I know. And I hate being set up. I'm just going to put that on the record.
And I tell you, I think the girls have to deal with this more.
Oh, for sure.
Because, like you said, it's all the older married women who just want you to be as happy as they are, and I appreciate that. But they don't go ask the guy, hey, when are you... They ask us.
Exactly. And they all got married when they were 21, as we're seeing.
So, fun times.
Yes, fun times.
We feel you.
Yes.
We're there. We get it. We're dealing with it.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure it out. It's not... There's just no... I literally asked someone recently, I was like, I don't know what to say to people anymore.
Yeah.
Because I get asked these questions all the time. And I am out of answers.
Yeah.
It's like, what do I do?
It's like, do I wear a t-shirt that says, I'm single, I will let you know when I'm engaged, please don't ask me anything else.
I'm single, I'm trying to mingle, leave me alone.
That could be our first piece of merchandise that we ever sell. Yes. Check the website. I
do like that.
Single and I'm trying to mingle.
We do have some fun stuff in that vein coming up.
That's very true. Lots of surprises.
Yeah, soon, hopefully. We
way to work that in there.
I know. But for right now, all we've got though is if you go to our website, lookingforthemiddle.com, you can sign up to get updates. But we do have some really cool stuff that I think you guys are going to want to know about, hear about, have access to. We're going to be giving away some stuff. So go sign up so we can keep you updated on that. Shameless plug there.
Yes.
Okay. Back to what we were talking about.
So we've talked through pros and cons of singleness and dating in your 30s.
Yes.
And pros and cons of singleness and dating / marriage in like your early 20s, right out of college.
So now
what do we do with all of that? Because I'm sitting here thinking, well, I've passed the early 20s mark and my life plan didn't happen. I'm not in my 30s yet, but they are ever so quickly approaching as my siblings keep reminding me with every birthday that I hit. So, and even though I'm messing with Bethany, that she's older than me, but I'm relating way more to
that side of it
just because that's the season I'm in right now.
Yeah.
So Bethany, like, how do you deal with all of this? That's probably not a great way to say it, but how do you walk through this, whatever season you're in, with the right mindset?
I think the number one thing is to realize at whatever point you are, you cannot go back. There is absolutely nothing I can do to be like, I want to get married in my early 20s. Sorry, not going to happen. Like, you cannot go back. And so I think accepting that, realizing that where you're at now is obviously where God wanted you to be, whether you wanted to or whether you envisioned it or not, like, this is where he wants you. And so really just, like you've said before, don't wish away the season you're in. Don't focus so much on the cons of this and only see the pros of other seasons before or after you, like previous or future.
That's true.
And kind of like we both kind of were like, oh, when you were talking about your parents and the Del Taco and 6 p.m. to watch movies on a Friday night, both of us were like, oh, that's so cute. So we're in this season saying, oh, I wish I just had someone to eat tacos with and watch movies on a Friday night. But I guarantee you, they were saying, oh, can you believe we're eating tacos again? I wish we could afford something else.
That's so true.
So don't focus on the ideal of another season and miss the good in this one, because that one was just as hard and that one had just as many things that were bad in that time that they saw about it too. So just be present, be focused on serving and honoring the Lord here and now. And, we kind of laugh because when you're single, and I'm just going to get really real here for a minute, especially when you're a little bit older, the last thing you want to hear sometimes is another person who's been married for 30 years telling you, if you'll just trust God, that's the key to it all. And you're like, I know I need to trust God. I do. And I wholeheartedly believe that. But I am still alone right now. And so that's a hard thing to hear sometimes, but I'm going to be that person telling you that's what you have to do. Regardless of that season, you have to trust the character of God. That He's good, that He's kind, and that He loves you. If you do those three things and you're so focused on that, you'll see the loneliness fall away. You'll see the discontent fall away. Suddenly, the fact that you don't have a date on Friday night won't be as big of a deal because you're so single-mindedly focused on following Christ and trusting that He is who He says He is, who He has revealed Himself to be in His Word, and that is for your good. We say that a lot around here, that God works all things together for good, and He does. But if you stop there, there's kind of an emptiness to that because it doesn't feel good right now. But when you look past that to the next verse in Romans 8 that says, He's working all things to your good to make you more like Christ. That brings it full circle, and that makes it a full picture. And so whatever stage you're in now, whether it's the early 20s, the early 30s, early 40s, 60s, 70s, whatever it is, you're in the situation you're in right now. We're in the situations we're in right now because that's what's best for us, whether we totally see it or not. And that's where the trust comes in.
So beautifully said. She just wraps it up so well every time, guys. It's just like mic drop and walk away. Seriously, though, this is, we say this a lot, but I needed this.
We need the
especially
reminders
right now, for sure. And one thing that was funny as I'm sitting here like, looking at our notes is there are pros and cons to both. It's not like we sat down and said, here are all the cons about being older and single, and here are all the pros if you just got married out of college like you wanted to. And even when I called my mom, she listed off 3 or 4 things, and she was like, I've listed all cons. And I'm like, yeah, can you give me a couple positive things? But it's just funny because that was her reality. And so she was able to tell me firsthand, hey, this was really great, and I would not trade this, but these were the things that were hard about it.
Yep.
And so I think the more we do our best instead of focusing on the ideals, like you said, but really making sure we're getting a full picture of what each of these seasons look like, the better we're going to be able to navigate this.
And I think to sum it all up, everything we've said here is whatever stage or season you're in, live it in such a way that you can look back, like your mom said, and say, yeah, it was hard, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. That's where you want to be.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Mom. I'm going to make her go listen to this one.
It's about time she listened to something we record.
Okay. No, I would. Yeah, my mom's pretty great. So, I'll keep her. Well, guys, there's another episode. I can't believe we're already 6 episodes in this season.
Good grief.
Which is crazy. Time.
Oh, man, we're about to say the same thing, weren't we?
Yep, time is flying.
When you're having fun.
Yes, and we're having loads of fun, and we hope y'all are too. So stay tuned. In a couple days, we'll have another couch cast coming at you. But until then, I'm Kristen.
And I'm Bethany.
And this is Looking for the Middle.